All right, for more on this, we are joined by a public policy specialist from the Northwest University, Kagiso Pooe. Thank you so much for coming through, Kagiso. So, what a difference 24 hours makes. Yesterday, Supra Mahumapelo was saying we are beyond the issue of a resignation. By midday, he would not be Premier of the Northwest. By today, he's talking a different language that, I've been deployed by these people, the PSC and the branches, and they are saying I must go absolutely nowhere. What do you think happened overnight? Who got to Supra?
I think they normally say a week is a long time in politics. In the South African term, it could be a whole day is a long time. I think it just speaks to the issue of the complexity, basically, of politics, especially the issue of patronage. I think you've seen a lot of his acolytes come out and basically say he's not going anywhere. And the key question I always tell people to really ask is who's going to benefit with him staying there? Clearly, maybe people did get to him. We don't know who, but it probably could be his own PC. And just to remind him that, listen, patronage is about taking a loan, or it's almost like taking in funeral cover. They took funeral cover on the man, and for him to basically decide, listen, you're going to leave us high and dry, it wasn't basically going to happen. And if you look at the structure of the Northwest, especially from the municipalities all the way to the provincial level, there's a huge system of patronage at play there. So I think people basically got to him and said, listen, you cannot just leave us high and dry here. We also are in this with you, so it's better if you rather take your time. We don't know when he'll resign, if he'll resign again, but they probably told him, listen, let's rather play the procedure card, because again, if he is stepping down, especially the national ANC says, listen, you're stepping down, what are the charges really that have been brought against the man? Yeah,
I mean, as you talk about that, even the Provincial Executive Committee itself last night issued a statement welcoming our provincial chairperson's exit as Premier of Bokone-Bophirima Province, the Northwest. And today they are rescinding that statement through this very same person who issued that statement last night. Could there be elements that are beyond the Northwest that talk to national dynamics, perhaps the provincial structures led by Supra joining in some kind of tussle that's perhaps happening at a national level in as far as the battle for control and the heart and soul of the ANC is concerned?
I think you have it right there. I normally just like to collocate it within a broader process, which is to say President Cyril Ramaphosa, as he currently sits, he didn't have a constituency going into the election. People like Supra, the current Premier or acting Premier, I don't know what you call him now, have always been building this machine. We always talk about the machinery of the ANC, but what we always fail to understand is that there's also a mini machinery of demagogues, and I think he just plays really into it. And it could be a question of saying, listen, if they are seen to maybe stop Ramaphosa at this point in time, then maybe people in KZN and other provinces can also start saying, listen, yes, you might have got your victory at Nasrec, but as terms of how the ANC will go forward into the future, we can actually maybe lead without you. You can just be the president, but that's where it stops. And I think it goes back to the constitution of the ANC. If you actually read it, it's very federalist in orientation. The PEC, I believe, procedurally can actually say, you should have come to us, spoken to us, and made this a larger issue. Because as they speak, it just seems that they're sticking on procedure. And I think maybe that is the key issue of saying people are saying we're not ready to dialogue with the national. And maybe they found a weakness within the ANC of President Cyril Ramaphosa to say, listen, what can you honestly do to us?
So interestingly, when Supra Mahumapelo was addressing supporters outside, he also played a very familiar card that I'm being targeted, I'm a victim of a conspiracy, and he says this partly has to do with him being a champion against corruption, since he made that State of the Province address where he committed himself to ensuring that he tackles issues of corruption. But interestingly, unlike other people who claim to be political victims of a political conspiracy, he's naming his enemies. He identified those that are called the Revolutionary Council, some ANC members of the provincial legislature that he says seem to be siding with the EFF, SANCO and the SACP. What do you make of that?
2 points there. One, I think it's actually quite disheartening when you get people who are in positions of leadership using issues of poverty and corruption to almost make a grandstand about it. The key question to say, listen, what have you done for the province? If you've been listening, I know you've been paying attention to media reports. If you actually look at the AG's report about Northwest Province, you just see it's a province which is in dire turmoil. If you look at all the socio-economic indicators, it's a province which post-1994 has just been on the downward trend. So I always say it's not his personal issue per se, it's an ANC issue, but the way he's playing people in this and poverty is not correct. Now, it's good that he names them, but the key question is, what's he going to do about it? I think our constitution is quite clear and our law is quite clear. If you actually have evidence, it's good to tell the media, it's good to tell the rest of South Africa, but why don't you take it to the courts? Let's see how this plays out.
So part of the fight back strategy includes, over the next 18 weeks, he says he'll tour the province and tell the branches the truth about what's going on here, about how basically he's being targeted and other leaders are being targeted in this way. And also interestingly, he then mentions that he calls on his supporters in the Northwest to go and support former President Jacob Zuma when he appears in court on the 8th of June. When you are the national leadership of the ANC and you're watching all of this unfold in the way that it has in the last 24 hours, how basically this has become a fight back, what do you do? What do you do about it if you are Cyril Ramaphosa and the leadership of the ANC?
I don't want to be him. It's not cool at the moment to be him. But I think, look, he needs to really put his foot down on this. Now, as I said, to find a legal pretext for getting rid of him is going to be a bit tough, not unless the evidence is quite there and they can go to the court systems. But I think they might have to pull out a card where basically we're saying, listen, we're stepping in, we're going to disband the PEC. Find a proper pretext, because what we do know about these situations is that they can play themselves out in court, but he needs to be seen to be the president of the ANC. Now, what I thought is that maybe what would happen is that there'd be a cooling off period amongst people in the ANC. They say, listen, let's just rather go to 2019 elections and then we'll get back to our own domestic squabbles. But it would seem as though if he's going on a road tour basically to advertise himself, he's just basically going to go solidify his position within the province. He is an elected leader of the ANC in the structures. And he's just basically saying, listen, I've got my credit, which is my province, which is the people, as few as there might be, but it's actually a legal process. And if the president of the ANC wants to take me on, let's go for it. It's almost as though he says, I don't care. It's a kamikaze situation. What can you honestly do to me? And what President Cyril Ramaphosa cannot be seen to do is to do his normal, which is correct. I mean, it's good to be thoughtful. It's good to be pedantic on issues, but it cannot be seen to be going always a step behind a premier. He needs to be seen to be, quote unquote, the man. And if he's not playing that card, he's got problems.
But Kagiso, can Supra Mahumapelo honestly expect to survive this after he played that card of saying, I'm resign, and then stopped himself less than 24 hours later? Can he really survive this?
Now I was asked, what's to stop him from surviving? Again, it goes back to, if he basically says, I take it back, what can the ANC nationally charge him with? Has he brought the party into disrepute and this has to go into a DC? When you read the Constitution, it's a bit blurry, but he can honestly say what he can. I think he can actually afford to play this out long. We've never seen a person actually say, listen, I'm going to play this out the long game. Section
100, is that really now a possibility, the takeover by national government of a few other departments and perhaps quite a number of other departments? You saw in that briefing with Susan Danke that issue being raised, and she was basically saying that, look, at this point we are only sitting with the department, the provincial Department of Health, that is being administered by national government.
I think that's a government issue. I think the key issue is, what can the ANC do? Because let's say he resigns as premier properly, whichever we define the word properly, but he's not in the building anymore and he's not even acting. He's still the chairperson of the ANC in Northwest Province. I think that's a bigger issue, that you can get rid of him in government. What if he just decides, okay, I'll step down, but this is my negotiating strategy. I step down, you put someone I trust in there. So the key issue is, how are they going to get rid of him as the ANC premier in that province? And I think that's the bigger issue.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming through, Kagiso Pooe. What political intrigue we live with these days, coming through from the Northwest, that story. Supra Mahumapelo going absolutely nowhere, instead taking leave of absence.